Hey guys, my name is Matt from MW. Hey guys, I'm Matt from MWA Woodworks, and in this video we're talking dust collection. Hey guys, I'm Matt from MWA Woodworks, and this video is gonna suck. So let's get started. The first place I focused on was my biggest dust producing tools like the table saw, joiner, planer, and bandsaw. Alright, so when I first started woodworking, I lived in a different house and my shop was in a 2-car garage. Now in that setup, I had a 1.5 horsepower jet dust collector that I'd purchased off Craigslist for a couple $100 and converted myself into a 2-stage dust collector. Now in that shop setup, it worked very well because the tools were clustered more around the dust collector and no more than 10 or 12 feet away from it, so it was able to operate pretty efficiently and collect the dust well. Now fast forward to today in my new shop, and I work in a very narrow, long space. It's about 60 feet from end to end, and so I'm forced to lay my tools out more in a linear fashion. So that's one thing that I've got to consider. The other thing is noise. So in the room that I'm standing in right now is directly below a bedroom, and back there, that room is directly below my dining room. So ideally, I wanted to set my dust collector up in the back corner of the shop there to keep the noise down. The challenge of this shop layout is that the tool that is the furthest away from where I wanted the dust collector to be, which is my table saw, is about 50 feet away. So to solve for this shop layout and satisfy my dust collection needs, I upgraded to a 3 horsepower Cyclone dust collector. There are several good options for Cyclone dust collectors, but I went with the Oneida Dust Gorilla Pro. From the dust collector, I ran a single straight run of 6-inch snap lock pipe. I also added 4-inch ports along the way at places where my joiner, planer, bandsaw, and CNC would be. The 6-inch line extends through the wall into the front of the shop where I can connect 4-inch hoses to my router table and finally my table saw. Hey guys, so I'm here at the back side of my table saw and I wanted to demonstrate the power and the airflow of this machine at this distance. And so I went ahead and took a tape measure and measured the distance from the dust collector in the other room to this pile of debris on the floor, and it's just about 48 feet. So this is not a scientific test of the airflow or the power of this machine. I just wanted to demonstrate to you what kind of airflow I'm getting to my table saw when I'm using this 3 horsepower unit. So let me fire it up here and I'll show you how I pick this up. So as you can see, that picked up that debris in almost no time. So it's a tremendous amount of airflow, really good power from this machine, and works very well for my linear style shop setup. Now the final thing I added to this new dust collector was automation. This solves for my all too common ability to forget to open the right blast gate and spew dust all over the shop. The system, although it needs a number of power outlets to work, was super easy to install. I just connected a blast gate to each 4-inch inlet using a rubber pipe collar, and then connected the 4-inch hose coming from my tools onto the blast gate, and that's it. The magic of this system lies in these little transmitters that wirelessly connect the system together. They can be programmed with switches to pair with the blast gates. Each transmitter clamps to the power cord of the machine that is connected to the paired blast gate. It senses when the tool has been turned on and sends a signal to the switch controller, which is wired to the dust collector to turn it on, while at the same time sending a signal to open the corresponding blast gate. The end result is that when I turn on any connected tool, the blast gate for that tool automatically opens and the dust collector turns on. And once the tool is turned off, you can see this little green tab on the blast gate disappear, indicating that that blast gate is closed off again. I installed a blast gate on my planer, joiner, bandsaw, CNC, and 2 in the other room for my table saw and router table. Okay guys, so that takes care of dust collection at my larger stationary tools like my table saw and joiner, etc. Anything that can take a 4-inch hose to connect to take the dust away. But that doesn't really solve the problem for the smaller tools in my shop, things like my miter saw, my disc sander, my portable tools like my track saw and domino, etc., which have much smaller dust ports that you really can't hook that machine up to. You really need a smaller, more portable dust collection solution for those tools, and that's what I'm going to show you next. For these tools, I have two solutions in my shop. The first is this dust collection cart, which I made earlier this year, and it can turn any standard shop vac into a mini cyclone dust collector. I use this on my miter saw, disc sander, oscillating sander, and to clean up the shop floor between projects. It's on 3-inch casters, so it's very mobile, and because the cyclone keeps the filter free of dust, it operates very efficiently and doesn't lose suction. I'll leave a link in the description for the plans to build this if you'd like to have one of these for your shop. So what are the advantages of using a cyclone separator over just using your shop vac to collect dust in the shop? Well, it all comes down to convenience, efficiency, and longevity. You see, when dust enters the system, it gets separated out by this cyclone and the debris falls in this bucket, and the only thing that makes it through this line into the actual dust collector are the finest, smallest dust particles. And so that really helps keep the filter that's in here running efficiently as long as possible. And when you add a dust bag in here to capture that fine dust, well, the actual filter really never gets touched. And this thing can run efficiently for years without having to get in here and check it for dust. And everything is right here, so you can just pop the top off conveniently, get rid of the waste that's in this bucket, and get right back to work. Okay guys, so I went ahead and cracked open the shop vac so I could show you the inside and so you can see what I'm talking about. So when you look, this is the Hepa filter that I bought with this vacuum when I got it about 11 months ago, which is when I built this whole cyclone separator system. And you can see how, this has really not been touched at all by dust and debris. It looks almost brand new, which makes my lungs very happy, by the way. And if you look here inside the bucket, there's basically nothing down in there. And there's only just the finest, smallest little pile of fine dust and debris inside this filter bag. So again, that just tells you how efficiently this system runs, assuming that you empty your bin up top and don't let it overflow in here, which would obviously be a problem. But if you don't do that, you can really see how you might go, with moderate use, 4, 5, 6 years without ever having to change out this bag and worry about what's going on inside your cyclone. And so what all that means is, in having a filter this clean, what that means is that the air that comes out of the backside of this when this is blowing is going to be very clean air. It also means that the system is operating super efficiently. You're not going to lose suction like you might if this was getting clogged up with debris that was coming straight in here and not going into the cyclone. I also have a lot of handheld power tools that I use in the shop, like my track saw, domino, routers, and orbital sanders. Now for these tools, I use my Festool CT dust extractor. Now since most of these tools are Festool, the hoses and connections already work perfectly for these tools, and the boom arm attachment keeps the hose and power cord out of my way when I'm operating the tools at my workbench, which is super convenient. You could also buy the hoses and connections to put on the homemade dust collection cart too, and skip the CT dust extractor altogether if you don't have the space or the budget. I'll leave a link in the description for some hoses and adapters that would make this work. So that covers collecting dust at the source, but what about the fine dust that makes it into the air? This is especially a problem at the table saw and the miter saw. For that, I have an Ambient Air Cleaner. This is a device that's basically a blower motor with a couple of filters in it. Its job is to circulate air and pick out any of the fine dust particles that are floating around. This, after all, is the most dangerous dust when it comes to our lungs. This air filter has 3 speeds and can be run for 2, 4, or 8 hours depending on how much dust you've created. I like to turn on the air cleaner at the end of my workday and let it do its job cleaning the air overnight. And I change out my air filters about once a month on this unit, depending on how much I've worked in the shop. And I try to buy my filters a box at a time to make sure that I always have one ready to go. I'll also leave a link in the description for this air cleaner as well as the filters that I use in case you want to add one of these to your shop. The third and final method that I use to control dust is one that all of you should already have, and that's a dust mask. No matter how good your dust collection setup is, if you're cutting wood, dust will get into the air, and so the easiest way to save yourself from breathing that in is to always have a good dust mask with a proper filter installed for particle removal. Now, I've used a couple different types of masks, but I've become partial to these RZ masks. They're super lightweight and comfortable to wear. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick up a couple for yourself.